Welcome to the Joyfully Homeschooling Podcast
with our mom,
Misty Bailey. Tips and encouragement
for
real-life homeschooling
is headed your way.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Joyfully Homeschooling Podcast. I am Misty Bailey, blogger at Joy in the Journey and podcaster here at Joyfully Homeschooling. Today is episode 13 of the Joyfully Homeschooling Podcast. And before we get started, I just want to say that if you like this episode or if you're liking this podcast so far, then I recommend you click the button that says subscribe, because when you do that, every episode of the Joyfully Homeschooling Podcast will automatically show up in your podcast feed. I also would love it if you leave a review, especially on iTunes. Those reviews really make a difference because it tells iTunes that I am not just talking to nobody, but that there are people on the other side listening. And especially during the first 8 weeks of a new podcast, all of those reviews and subscribers really helps iTunes know that people are listening, and it helps other moms find this podcast, so it will show up more on their searches. So I would love it if you would do that. So today's episode of the Joyfully Homeschooling Podcast is discussing my homeschooling pet peeves, or the things I dislike about homeschooling. And yes, believe it or not, even though I am a huge homeschool advocate, there are things that I do not like about homeschooling. And while these things are not deal breakers, they do kind of make me slightly jealous of my friends whose kids are in public school. So the first one is the S word. Now, does everybody know what the S word is? Socialization. It is one question that honestly makes me want to punch the person in the face who asks. I don't actually do that, but I want to. So I don't know if that counts or not. But in today's world, where homeschooling is on the rise and public schools are eliminating socialization opportunities, I am shocked that people even have the gall to ask how my kids will be socialized. Between co-ops, field trips, extracurricular activities, and other errands and events, we rarely go a whole day at home. Right now, as of the time of the recording of this podcast, we are home maybe 2 days a week because we're busy with therapies, co-ops, everything I just mentioned. So there's that. And also we have other errands. We are just busy. Homeschooling allows our kids to socialize, though, with the real world. Each of those areas where we go, each of those things that we do, the kids are not segregated by age or grade, because in the real world, we're not segregated by age and grade. So they're actually given the opportunity to socialize in a normal fashion like real people do. People need an education on the true meaning of socialization before they start asking homeschoolers questions like the one about socialization in a rude manner. And I actually did a video, I'll link to this in the show notes, but I did a video about the rudest question I was ever asked about homeschooling. You definitely want to go check that out. It was related to socialization, but it was actually asked to my child, and it did not go over well. So anyway, the next thing that I do not like about homeschooling is paying for curriculum. Guys, I, at the time of this recording, spent yesterday at Great Homeschool Conventions, and I spent $500 on curriculum, and that wasn't even everything. And I know some people spend more and some people spend less, but especially as my oldest gets into high school, homeschooling is becoming more and more expensive. And keep in mind, because I do blog, I do get some of our resources for free, but not everything. And so I know many of you spend way more than I have to on curriculum. And it is one thing that I really do not like about homeschooling. Public school curriculum is free. Homeschool curriculum is not. Now, we have always been blessed with the funds or the curriculum that we need when it's come along, but I still dislike the cost and having to shell out the money. Going along with this is the lack of resources available if you have a child with special needs. My son is, he definitely has some special needs. And because of that, we don't get all of the resources that the public school kids get. We pay taxes into our school district, but yet we don't get any of that money back to help with homeschool curriculum or able to get therapies or different things like that. And I know there's going to be some people out there who, when they hear this, are going to say, I don't want the taxpayer money back because that's going to have the schools or the state be more involved in homeschooling. And I'm not here to argue that one way or the other. I'm just simply saying that one of the things I dislike is having to buy homeschool curriculum and the lack of resources that we get. And I know not everyone is called to homeschool, and I know that the schools need to be funded, but if I'm helping to fund the public schools, why can't I reap some of the benefits? With my son having special needs, when we first noticed he was having some issues, we reached out to the school district because our insurance did not cover any of any kind of speech therapy or anything like that. And I knew there was a problem that we needed to get covered, and they absolutely refused to offer him any kind of speech services, write him an IEP or anything, because I would not enroll him. I had to contact Homeschool Legal Defense over it, and they were in the right because he was not school age. They did not have to write him an IEP, for one, and they absolutely did not had the right to refuse services even though he was underage, unless I wanted to enroll him in the school. I just don't think that's right. And it is a major, major pet peeve of mine. We ended up having to pay for private therapy in our home, which cost us quite a bit of money every month until we were able to get him to school age and get a scholarship. But anyway, that is a massive, massive, massive pet peeve of mine, and one of the things I dislike about homeschooling. So anyway, I know that some of you may not totally agree with that, but that's okay. So the next one is testing. And again, I'm probably going to strike a nerve here. So in Ohio, we have to either test or have a homeschool assessment done every year. I'm not 100% for or against standardized testing. But I will say that I hate testing season. Again, we do test. It was one of those things that whenever we began homeschooling, it was an agreement made upon between me and my husband, and you can hear more about that in episode 1. So we do test our girls every year, and I absolutely hate testing. It is not something I enjoy. I do not like having to report anything at all to the state, and if we didn't test, we would still have to have an assessment done by a licensed school teacher. And yeah, I just don't really like having to answer to anybody, especially when I'm paying taxes to the school district and not reaping any benefits of it. So why do I then still have to answer to that school district? Yeah, it's a whole big long circle there that I absolutely dislike about homeschooling. Also going along with testing is when the scores come back and they're maybe not where you want them to be or where you thought they would be. There's nobody else to blame or point the fingers at than yourself. And I'm not saying we should blame or point the fingers at anybody, but the kids in public school, the parents take no responsibility over their education really whatsoever, right? It's in the hands of other people. So if those test scores come back a little off, then you kind of wonder, did I not do this right? Could I have done better on this? And I know the point of testing is to show kind of where they are and areas that you need to work on. But yeah, testing just absolutely drives me nuts. Whether the results are good or bad, I just dislike testing season. Going along with that, another thing that I dislike about homeschooling is the pressure. Knowing that I'm solely responsible for my children's education is a huge, huge weight. This is especially true when there are children with special needs involved. Add the pressure that you get from others, like when your family disapproves of homeschooling, which I talked about a couple episodes ago. You have to deal with the pressure and the critics at the supermarket, local school district officials, and sometimes it's just enough to make a mom crack. There's a lot of pressure that comes along with being a homeschool mom. And again, it relies solely on our shoulders. And it is something that I dislike about homeschooling. Sometimes I would rather not be that role, and I would rather just be mom, which is another thing that I dislike about homeschooling is the dual roles. Do you remember, any of you remember what it was like when the only thing we had to worry about was being mom and not having to play teacher? It is a lot of work, and breaking out of the teacher mode and back into the mom mode is hard. At least it is for me. I feel like sometimes I'm always the bad guy. There's no principal here during the day, right? Like when you're in public school, or the public school teachers, they don't always have to be the bad guy. They can send the kids where? To the principal's office. We don't have a principal's office, guys. If they're misbehaving, it is just on us. It is just on us. We're the disciplinarian all the time, 24/7. Because 9 times out of 10, the principal of the home is at work. And what do you say to them? Well, when your dad gets home, it's just not the same. It's just not the same. Plus, playing teacher means that we are the ones who have to grade all the papers. We are the ones that have to do all the planning. We are also required to play taxi driver, be a cook, a nurse, a housekeeper, and doer of all the things. It is exhausting sometimes, right? And sometimes we just need a break, but we can't do that. We don't have a teacher's lounge. We don't have teachers' service days. It is us all the time. So going along with that and with the grading papers is the record keeping. Keeping records for 3 kids is exhausting. And I know some of you have way more than 3 kids, and you're probably rolling your eyes and laughing at me right now. But portfolios, grades, attendance sheets, test results. I used to have a bookshelf full of homeschool records, and we're not even halfway through our homeschool journey. So where those records are now is in a large tote in my building. Like, they're not even in my house anymore. Like, I've literally filled a whole tote full of records. And I don't know, like, what do you keep? What do you not keep? How long do you need to keep it? I always just assumed I would have to keep, things for maybe a year and then toss it. But then somebody told me that if I do that, then one day they may question the legitimacy of my child's homeschool diploma because I don't have 3rd grade math workbooks. I don't know. I have no idea. So literally everything that we've done, almost everything we've done, is in large totes in my building. I think I've now filled 2 totes. I'm starting on my 3rd. Yeah, I don't know what I plan on doing with those when I'm done homeschooling, but they're there. So yeah, there's the record keeping aspect of homeschooling that I just don't like. So the next thing that I do not like about homeschooling, and if you hear my notes, I'm just like going through because there's just so many things that's on here that I don't like about it. Okay, the second guessing. And yeah, I think that this to me kind of goes along with the testing, but we carry that huge weight on our shoulders with playing the dual roles. So do you ever question yourself and ask yourself, should you still be homeschooling? Would it be easier to send them to school? When you're making a list of all the things you dislike about homeschooling, are you kind of wondering in the back of your head, is this really worth it? And we second guess ourselves year after year after year. There is always like, I'm gung-ho on homeschooling. I plan on homeschooling long term. But there's always just that little seed of doubt in the back of your mind, right? Wondering if you're failing at this. And when it comes with curriculum shopping season, which many of us are in right now, the second guessing, wondering, should you choose this curriculum? Should you not choose this curriculum? Should you keep the kids together for certain subjects? Should you separate them? Should you do a computer-based program, or should you have the textbook? So many things to think about, and you're constantly second guessing yourself and wondering if you are doing the right thing. So anyway, all of that to say that the last thing that I want to tell you that I dislike about homeschooling, and this is kind of funny, but not really, is the fact that I have absolutely fallen in love with homeschooling. When I started homeschooling, I really did not know how long we'd be doing it. But now we are on our 9th year, and I have absolutely fallen in love with it. So why is this on the dislike list? Because I know, again, that we are in it for the long haul, which means that I have, Daniel, 6, so 12 more years of dealing with all of these things that I dislike about homeschooling. It also means that I'm going to have to justify my choice of homeschooling for the next 4,380 days, unless by some insane miracle homeschooling truly goes mainstream and is an honored education choice by everyone, not just those smart and intelligent people who realize that homeschoolers aren't all freaks. So anyway, those are just a few things that I dislike about homeschooling. And if you're on the other side of this screen and wondering if there's so many things that I dislike, then why am I doing it? Because let me tell you that everything on that list is absolutely worth it. Every bad day of homeschooling leads to a day that is wonderful. Every penny that I have paid into my child's education is money well spent. When I feel the weight of the homeschool critics, and when you feel the weight of the homeschool critics, we can remind ourselves that God is molding us. He is shaping us into the homeschool moms that He wants us to be. When we file yet another paper or grade yet another test, we can remind ourselves that we are training our children up for such a time as this. Are there going to be things that we dislike on our homeschool journey? Absolutely. But everything that is good will also have areas that test us. It is worth it. Vocalize those frustrations to a friend. Remove the weight and the burden that you feel about homeschooling, and just remind yourself of the blessings that come along with it. So those are a few things, like I said, that we dislike about homeschooling, but it is worth it. It is so worth it. And I hope that you think it is too. So that is it for this episode of the Joyfully Homeschooling podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you will share with me some of the things that you dislike about homeschooling. Do you disagree with some of the things that I said, or those things that you love about it? Then please shoot me an email, misty@jointhejourney.net. Leave a comment here or on my Facebook page. My Facebook page is Joy in the Journey, or on Instagram at Find Joy in Journey. I would love to chat with you. So if you are one of those moms who's on the other side of the screen and who is thinking to themselves, there are so many things I dislike about homeschooling, and I don't think it's worth it. I don't think I have fallen in love with it, and I am ready to send my kids on that big yellow school bus in the fall. Then I highly, highly, highly encourage you to check out homeschool consulting. It is something that I am offering now for homeschool moms who are maybe on the ledge, or who are maybe struggling with finding a routine or finding joy in their homeschool, maybe just feeling really burdened down. I would love to chat with you. It is a one-on-one service. So it would just be me and you talking about all of the things that you're struggling with. And my goal is just to encourage you and to give you tips to help you continue homeschooling, to pray with you, to talk to you, and to just maybe find some solutions to help you continue homeschooling and to help you have more joy in your homeschool journey, and to help you have a more joyful homeschool, because I believe that as homeschool moms, we have one of the best, if not the best, job in the whole entire world, because we do get to put smiles on our kids' faces each and every day, and we get to educate them and to see them and to encourage them and to equip them and to raise them up the way that the Lord sees fit. And it is a wonderful job, even though there may be things we dislike about it. So that is it for this episode of the Joyfully Homeschooling Podcast. Now, I would love it if you would head out there and have a more joyful homeschool.